Okay, we're now recording and we're broadcasting, so I will go ahead and take the roll. Pertula?
Here.
Chen?
Here.
Elen?
Here.
Okay, so everyone is present.
Great. Okay, let's go ahead and begin. Regularly scheduled meeting of the Audit Committee, California State Bar. I don't believe we have any closed session items. Let me ask if there's anyone in the public that would like to make comment. I don't see anyone. If there is, please raise your hand virtually.
Yeah, I don't see
Yeah, I don't either. I'm going to move through this quick. I do not have a chair's report. It's been a little while. This committee, I think we all know, is somewhat seasonal, and we're about to begin the season again. And so I do not know who will be chairing it for the next season, but we are definitely at the first stages of getting ready for next year's audit. So other than that, I don't have any other items. Let's move straight to the consent calendar. Anybody have any objections with 5A, travel expenses on the consent calendar? If not,
No objection.
No objection.
If not, I believe, Linda, we can just move forward. So approved. I don't believe we need to have a vote on consent. We're all here. If someone disagrees, correct me. Business and discussion items. Linda, let's talk about the audit recommendations.
Sure. So as my memo details, there are a couple of audits from the Bureau of State Audits that had outstanding recommendation. Well, just one that had an outstanding recommendation as of last year. But at this point, of the 17 recommendations, 16 are fully implemented and one is partially implemented, and we're not going to implement it any further, and that's explained in the attachment. This has to do with the travel and business related expense policy. And the auditor, their recommendation is that all expenses should adhere to the per diem, and for the most part they do. There are just sometimes, although not in the current the state that we're in, where there are off-site meetings where we can't necessarily conform to that policy, but for the most part we do. So I think that's not going to go any further. And then the 2018 audit, we're well on our way towards meeting all the requirements for that audit. So they're in process, and we're continuing to update the state auditor on those. And if anyone has any questions on any specific recommendations, I'm happy to answer them.
Linda, are there any recommendations that we've hit a hurdle on that have not been easy to implement?
I don't believe so. There was a sticking point with having to do with the purchasing card policies, but I believe that they're fully resolved. And Steve, I sent you a follow-up question from the auditor on the most recent response that we provided to them.
Right.
But I don't anticipate any problems. No.
No, so nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
I had a question about the IT security item, which is item 27. Mm-hmm. And just wanted to know what, it says partially complete and target for full completion in Q2 2021. Just wanted to know what other items still needed to be completed.
I can leave that to Steve to answer.
Well, I'm sorry, just where there's a lot of things here. What are you looking at? Just so
so unless maybe we're looking at different documents, but I was looking at the internal audit from March 2018.
The Moss Adams?
Oh, the thing that Linda sent separately.
Yes.
Cybersecurity audit status, is that correct?
No, it's in the Moss Adams document on page 14.
On page 14.
It's the second set of item 27.
Did you, I think I included you in that when I sent it out, Steve. Do you have that?
You did. So there's two attachments, the Moss Adams September
Yes.
2020, that one, and the
Yes.
cybersecurity status. So where are we looking?
So go to the Moss Adams
Okay, Moss Adams.
and then go to page 14 of 16, and it's the bottom 27.
Is that just like a policy? Like you have to like revise the policy? I was trying to understand what it referred to.
Yeah, they want us to have certain things just in our policy documents, but risk management, as sort of what we'll get to when we get to the work plan, the business continuity portion of our plan is not complete. So that part will be updated as we get the business continuity plan up and running later this year and into next year.
Got it. Okay.
Are there any other questions about the update to the audit recommendations?
None. Let's go ahead and move to the next business item.
Yeah, so the next business item is just a quick update, and I'm glad Donna's on the line with the state auditor. So the state auditor, as you know, performs an audit on the state bar every 2 years. It just seems like it happened yesterday, but the report was issued last April. This year, we actually had a kickoff with them. I believe it was August 25th. It was 3 weeks today. Was our initial kickoff. The scope of the audit, and I can do a quick share, if that's okay, Donna, to do a quick share on the agreement, if I can find it. Oh, maybe I can't find it. Give me a second here. Yeah, there we go. Screen one, share. So the audit, I guess there was a similar audit in 2012, specifically on the discipline system. So here's the scope of the audit that was recently done. And I don't know if this is the final one. I think we had some comments on it, but really focuses on the management of the attorney discipline system, including, but not limited to, the resources, the timeliness of investigations and disposition of cases, the effectiveness, the level of transparency. Number C, one of the other items that they're going to be looking at is our recent efforts related to managing our reserves, both and revenues and expenses, especially with the approval of the increase in the fee bill last year. And then a fourth item is to identify impacts from COVID. Really specific, the discussion has been related to admissions and the online bar exam and how that and decisions and implementation of that. So you can see sort of our response to the pandemic, how we work with stakeholders, and then other aspects. And then finally, sort of a catch-all review and assess any other issues that are significant to the audit. So that is really, I think, the big area is the discipline system, and that includes, the whole process, right? So everything from intake, OCTC to the courts to probation and whatnot. That we've gotten several document requests from them. Steve and I, at least on number C, which is, expenditures and reserves and some of the other findings related to leasing. They made a document request, I believe, yesterday, which we provided. We have a call with them in the morning. We would anticipate that this is going to be ongoing for the next 4 months. Usually they're, they spend between now, September to January, then produce the report, which the committee will see and the board will see, and then it will be finalized. It's, as far as I know, it's going to be 100% remote, at least what we've heard. There may be needs for them to come and look at specific documents, but at least right now, I believe it's planned to be mostly remote, if not completely remote. I think that's really the update. Donna, anything to add, or Steve, on the state audit?
So I would just add that the auditor is cognizant of all of what we're dealing with in terms of preparation for the bar exam and provisional licensure and all of that. And what they had indicated was that on that piece of the audit, they're really going to be striving to focus on publicly available, publicly accessible documents, and not distract the admissions staff from the work of putting on the bar exam and the provisional licensure program by asking them for input.
John, I don't mean to interrupt you. John, you're still sharing screen, just so you know.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. All right, Donna.
So I think that's good, and I'm going to be their contact on the admissions side in case there are things that they need while our admissions staff is busy trying to do the preparation.
I have a question.
Curiosity. Yeah, go ahead, Sonia.
So this will be, thank you, this will be 100% remote. Does that mean that they will have access to limited access or temporary access to all the system, the state bar system? Is that how it is for them to be able to audit?
So they've asked for access to Odyssey, the case management system that OCTC and the court and probation uses. And we have, I know we've worked with them to provide them some sort of access to that. Steve, I can't speak to exactly what access we were able to give them, whether that was through loading something on their laptop or providing them a state bar laptop with it loaded on. But we've worked with them on providing that access. The auditor by statute stands in the shoes of the entity. And so although when we provide them information, we can flag it as confidential for purposes of them not disclosing it if asked at a future date. We don't keep things confidential from the auditor. They get the same access that I would have or Steve would have to our documents and our information.
Including to attorney-client privilege documents.
Thank you.
Which is kind of crazy, but yeah.
Is any of the audit team some of the same individuals that audited 2 years ago, or is it all new?
Oh, they're all new, unfortunately. We expect that there will be some time necessarily getting them up to speed on state bar processes and procedures and terminology and all of that. But I think it's unfortunate because I'd rather not spend the time on that and rather sort of provide them the information they need as opposed to the education. But that's what happens with audit sometimes. And the audit lead let me know early on that they weren't going to be able to reconstitute the team from the last time.
The only comment, it's interesting. I thought they had more, Donna, I thought they had more people on this team than they did back last time, because there's really only 5 main people last time that were part of the audit. And I thought there was like 7 or 8 on the phone call that were involved. So I don't know if it was specific to certain areas or whatnot, but yeah, no continuity from the prior team at all.
Is that by design? So every 2 years you have a different group, or?
It could be. I don't know if it's helpful, at least, if you would have had a project lead or someone that's knowledgeable, like Donna said, you wouldn't be explaining things that are that are basic, that we spend a lot of time explaining to them. So.
What is the next action?
I'm sorry, I certainly don't think it's malicious. So, that's just the way it plays out.
What's the next action item or time that this will come before the committee? This matter will come before the committee.
I think it depends, Josh, on, if we see, or if there are preliminary findings, or if there's concerns that are raised before it's actually in a report. If I remember, we have, I think, 14 days, Donna, to respond to the draft report. There are 10 days.
5 days.
5 days, I'm sorry. But usually prior to that report, we have a good sense of what are the issues that are there. And I think, going forward, it just, there should be probably a check-in with the committee, probably in January as things start formulating, because they're really focused the first couple months in doing their reviews and stuff, and then issues start coming up or things that they believe are issues. So I think at that point, which staff knows, is to give an update on areas that the auditors may see as concerns.
And although we only have 5 days to respond, they are usually pretty good about giving us a schedule as we're approaching that time. So we should have the ability to have the 10-day notice to schedule a meeting of this group, so we can go over the recommendations and the findings and make sure we've got your input and the responses to this.
Do we have an exception where we can do that in closed session?
I would think so. I would think so.
Remember
we'll have
last
to confirm
time.
that.
Okay.
I believe last time, if I recall, I thought it was done in closed session, but it was the whole board. I have to go back.
It would be the same. The exception wouldn't be different for the committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then one more question, probably not relevant, but I'm just curious. Is there a chargeback on any fees? Do they hit us with a bill after this?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. No. We signed a contract not to exceed $500,000.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's, look at like this.
No wonder there's 7 people and not 5. All right.
I will say this, last year, they tracked their time and they can only charge up to 500,000. I think their bill, what they had chargeable time was 540,000. So they had to eat 40,000, but still.
And see,
yeah, $500,000.
yeah,
So.
and see, having new team, having to to be educated and to redo this thing. This is very costly. It's not efficient, I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, look, I'm excited about the opportunity for operational efficiency. So it is what it is. Okay. Anything else on 6B or 3B? Let's move on to work plan.
All right, so I'll quickly do the work plan. So, as Josh, as you mentioned, the end of the board year, new committee will come in. This is, we adopted, or at least had a work plan that was adopted by the committee and approved by the executive committee in January. Several things are routine, and as you said, very seasonal. I do think we had several larger items on there that still are pending. Just looking at, certainly you do the quarterly travel expense reports, which the committee does, and that's routine. There was the compliance review and activities that Linda has been working on over the last couple of years. I know that you and I had talked, Josh, and wanted to know how that was going, and if there was anything that had come to light. If you recall, there were some other items in past years that were concerns, like the fingerprinting and the fingerprinting for attorneys. One item that's on the work plan is, the third one is the state audit, which just kicked off, and so that will be carried over to the next year's work plan, at least for the committee to be involved in that process. Also, the reports that Linda provided earlier about the recommendations on some of these findings and the follow-up with the state audit, we have this, I think, the 3, 6, and annual responses that we need to give them related to findings and recommendations, and our follow-up, which continues as far as monitoring progress and evaluating those findings. Annual financial audit, interim audit has sort of started. With remote auditing with the MGO, they have started to make document requests. There won't be an entrance conference until November, prior to the November board meeting, and which interim will start, and then final is scheduled in February. So as far as the audit was completed, in by May 1st, the committee was highly involved in that, and a clean opinion. I'm going to turn over to Steve to sort of give an update both on the business continuity and the IT systems assessment.
Sure. So the business continuity plan, unfortunately, that has been delayed due to resource constraints. There's been a lot of resources pulled in other directions in the last couple of months, but we are working right now to get it back on track. We do have consulting hours that come with the planning software that we purchased. So we are going to sort of do this in more manageable doses. We're choosing one state bar office, and we're going to use that as a model for the end-to-end planning. And once that model and template is in place, we will then deploy that for all of the other state bar offices. So we're going to start with Attorney Regulation and Consumer Resources. It's a good office. It has a lot of different functions, a lot of strong supervisors there. So it's a good starting point to sort of work the kinks out. And then when we have the methodology down, we will then get that taken care of for all the other state bar offices. We are starting actually next week on that, is the kickoff with the team to get that. And we're hoping to have that model done in about 6 to 8 weeks.
Steve, I have a question on that, on the business continuity, because that was something that I've been very interested in even a few months back, before pre-COVID. Are you working on a plan that is now also, the framework of which is now being used with COVID, during COVID?
Well, COVID, nobody quite had a plan for COVID. Even our vendors,
of course,
nothing quite like this. And these sort of the
pandemic,
rapid scale transition to remote work. Nobody quite had a plan in place like that. I will admit, had we had like other plans in place, it certainly would have made us feel a little bit more secure. That said, I do think this sort of very abrupt transition that we had did go pretty well and did show that we are a pretty flexible and resilient organization. So that's good. That said, we do want to have sort of formal plans in place. A large percentage of the plan, or a very significant component of the plan, is just having all the various resources compiled in one place so everybody has the same playbook. There's a lot of things that exist already in individual offices, different programs, IT and facilities. They're just not, they're not sort of compiled into one unified format or methodology and easily accessible by everybody. So that's the plan now, is to get all of that compiled and have a sort of something that everybody can point to and deploy sort of an immediate response when something happens. So that is the plan.
So pre-COVID, there were individual department or individual section. I mean, not really more of a uniform.
That's correct. There are many individual things in place, but they're not in a consistent format. They're not in a consistent methodology necessarily, and they're not. They weren't sort of easily sort of shareable from the big picture perspective. They're more confined to each individual office. So the plan now is to have something that's much more comprehensive.
Thank you.
Okay. The application security assessment, that is the RFP is actually out. That also is a little bit behind schedule just because of resource constraints. The RFP is out now. For that, proposals are due next week, and we hope to get that project kicked off in October.
Steve, I'm not sure that there was anything different that could have been done. I completely understand what's come at us and the resources, but I will say I'd be remiss not to point out that when we started as a committee, those two audits were both ones we were very concerned with. Sonia did speak about continuity from the very beginning, and I was asking about IT. I've had too many clients and friends that have had just complete IT meltdowns based mostly on external factors. And so to the extent that we can continue to just focus on and move them along, I do want to just reiterate how important I think they are to the institution.
I fully agree with that and acknowledge that, and I take accountability for where we are or where we are not yet. And so I can commit to you that getting these things back on track now is an extremely high priority.
Great. Any other business items that, or any, I should say, any other comments on these business items?
Good.
No.
Okay. With that, Linda, I think we are done. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Bye.